everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. So let's just start with the basics.
Okay.
We say restaurant and cafe a lot.
But what's the distinction between those two things?
So I think the big distinction is that when you think of a restaurant, you're thinking about a sit-down meal.
Right.
You're thinking about waiters coming to your table and asking you what you want and, giving you menus.
Right. Multiple courses, possibly.
Multiple courses, yeah.
Yeah.
Appetizers, main courses, desserts.
Yeah.
The whole shebang.
Yeah.
Whereas a cafe, it's more about, getting a quick bite to eat.
Right.
Maybe just having a cup of coffee and a pastry or a sandwich.
Right. It's a quicker experience.
It's a quicker experience, yeah.
Yeah.
And often less less formal,
Yeah.
less expensive even.
Yeah. But then there's all these other terms like
diner,
bistro,
pub,
bar, all these different things.
So what is a diner?
So a diner is really interesting because it's got a really cool history.
Okay.
Diners actually originated back in the late 1800s.
And they were basically these horse-drawn lunch wagons that were repurposed to serve food to factory workers. So they would be these compact little spaces, with counters, and they would serve really quick, cheap food. So that's really where the diner came from, and that's why they're often associated with comfort food, like burgers and fries and milkshakes.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a really fun little bit of history of dining culture in America.
So then what about a bistro?
So a bistro is I would say a little bit more upscale than a cafe.
Okay.
It's still not quite as formal as a full-fledged restaurant, but it often has kind of a French flair to it.
Okay.
You'll find interesting dishes on the menu.
Okay.
Often you can get wine at a bistro.
Okay.
But it's it's a little bit more of an intimate setting usually. Than a restaurant.
Gotcha. And a pub.
So pub is short for public house, and it originated in Britain.
Okay.
And it's basically like a social hub
Okay.
for a neighborhood
Okay.
where people can go and have a drink.
Yeah.
And you can also get food at a pub.
Right.
And it's usually a really cozy atmosphere.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a good sense of all the places we can go to eat.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about how to order the food.
Okay.
Because I know,
Yeah.
For people who are still,
Yeah.
learning English, that can be one of the hardest things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what are some
So
things we need to know?
Yeah, one of the first things you're going to hear when you go to a restaurant is probably the waiter will come up to you and say, "May I take your order?"
Okay.
And you can respond with, "I'd like to order," or "Can I get?"
Right.
Or "I'd like the," whatever it is you want to order.
What about if you want to make a special request?
Yeah.
What if there's an ingredient you don't like or you have an allergy?
Yeah, you definitely want to let your waiter know about any allergies
Right.
or any special requests.
Right.
So you could say something like, "Excuse me, could I please have this dish without," and then whatever the ingredient is.
Right.
Or would it be possible to substitute and then name the ingredient you don't want
Yeah.
and the ingredient you do want?
Yeah.
And if you have an allergy, you want to be very clear about that. You could say, "I'm allergic to,"
Right.
and then name the allergen.
Yeah, and make sure it doesn't contain that.
Exactly. And say, "Please make sure this dish does not contain any," and then name the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we're ready to actually look at the menu
Okay.
and order. And
Now comes the fun part.
there's so many words on a menu
Yeah.
that can be really confusing. I don't
This
even,
can be overwhelming.
I know what half of them mean sometimes.
Yeah.
So let's start with
Well, let's start with
cooking styles.
cooking styles. Yeah, that's a good place to start. So you'll see grilled a lot, which means that the food has been cooked over direct heat.
Right.
And, it'll have those nice grill marks.
Yeah.
Then there's roasted, which means that it's cooked in an oven.
Okay.
And usually that creates a nice crispy exterior.
Okay.
Fried speaks for itself.
Yeah.
And then there's baked, which is also cooked in the oven, but with dry heat.
Okay.
So it's not submerged in liquid or anything. It's just cooked in the oven with dry heat.
Okay. So baked is more like breads and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Breads, cakes, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about words that describe flavor?
Yeah.
I always get confused by spicy.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Well, there's actually a scale
Oh, there is.
called the Scoville scale.
I've heard of this.
Yeah, it was invented by an American pharmacist named Wilbur Scoville in 1912.
Oh, wow.
And it basically measures the pungency of chili peppers.
Okay.
So bell peppers, for example, they score a 0 on the Scoville scale. Whereas habaneros can reach over 300,000 Scoville heat units.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you see something that says it's like, made with habaneros,
Yeah,
know it's going to be really spicy.
Yeah.
But if it says, it's made with bell peppers, it's not going to be spicy at all.
Okay, so I guess you have to know your
You have to know your peppers.
peppers.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's put all this vocabulary into action.
Okay.
Let's do a couple of scenarios.
All right.
So let's say you're at a cafe.
Okay.
It's the morning.
Yeah.
You want to order a latte.
Okay.
How would you order that?
So you could say something like, "Good morning. I'd love a large latte, please, with oat milk if you want oat milk."
Okay.
Or you could say, "I'm feeling adventurous. What kind of latte would you recommend?"
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So you're open to a recommendation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's say you're going out to dinner.
Okay.
It's a fancy occasion.
Yeah.
You need to make a reservation.
Yes.
How would you do that?
So you would call the restaurant and say, "Hello. I'd like to make a reservation for however many people
Yeah.
on, whatever date.
Right.
And be sure to mention if there's a special occasion or if you have any preferences.
Oh, right. Like
Like if you want a table by the window."
yeah, or like a quiet corner.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about if you're at a restaurant and you're overwhelmed by the menu?
Yes.
There's too many choices.
That happens to me all the time.
Yeah, me too.
You can always ask your waiter for a recommendation.
Okay.
You could say, "Excuse me, what would you recommend for someone who loves seafood?"
Right.
Or, "What's a popular dish that's not too heavy?"
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's all about just being able to communicate.
Exactly.
So
Just communicate clearly and politely,
Right.
and you'll be fine.
Great.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot of ground here today.
We have covered a lot of vocabulary.
Yeah. From the different types of places we can go to eat to how to actually order the food.
Yeah, how to make reservations.
Decode the menu. Yeah.
Yeah, all the different words you might see on the menu.
So much good stuff.
Yeah.
So hopefully you'll go out there and
Yes.
feel a lot more confident.
And have fun.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing,
Yeah.
is to have fun with it.
Try something new.
Yeah.
And I think one thing to think about is how does language
Oh, that's interesting.
shape our experience with food?
Yeah.
Like, does a dish sound more appealing
Yeah.
when it's described in a certain way?
Yeah. Or do we make different choices
Yeah.
based on how the menu describes something?
Right.
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah. So something to think about
Yeah.
as you're out there ordering.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, happy eating.
Bon appetit.
Bon appetit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.